Today, I talk with strength training coach Tina Tang, and we talk about the key signs of aging that you need to be looking out for and what you can do about it.
This is the one thing in our lives where there's so many other things we can't control. This is something that we have full will and control over.
You're going to want to stick around to the end because we have a special announcement. But for now, check this out. Hi, Tina. So good to see you again.
So good to see you, Risa.
I'm excited to talk about aging. I mean, this is a topic that you cover a lot, that I cover a lot, and I feel like, you know, there's a lot that we could be doing to prevent some of the pitfalls of aging and some of the things that we're really scared about in terms of our losing our strength, our muscle, our, you know, our balance and things. For you, what do you think are some of those key signs of aging that we see that maybe not necessarily, like we may not know, like the regular person may not notice that it's actual their weakening muscles, right? But for you as a trainer, you see it and you're like, you know, the warning signs are really flickering on and off.
Yeah, I think in everyday life, we kind of adjust to however our bodies are. So we probably don't notice it like, oh, now I need to. Here's an example. I have someone that I worked with. She was 70. I don't consider 70 old, but we started strength. She started strength training and wanted to work with me because she noticed that in order for her to go to the bathroom, like literally sit down on the toilet, she would set one hand down on the toilet to lower herself. Now, she was not an inactive person. She lives in Vermont and hikes every day. She's either hiking or doing the whatever that calls snowshoeing, like long distance walking in the snow,
Wow.
snowshoeing. So
Wow.
she was an active 70-year-old, but she noticed her muscle weakness in an everyday activity. Not so much notice, but just commented like, "Oh, I actually have to set hold on to the toilet seat to lower myself." So that would be an example. Like you can imagine when you were 20, you would never think to do that. It just wouldn't even be an issue. You just sit down onto lower yourself down onto the toilet. So that's a perfect example. I think another example would be going up and down the stairs. Uh, are you starting to turn sideways to go up and down the stairs? Go up the stairs? Do you find you have to need to pause? I think nothing happens overnight in terms of noticing aging. It's just, you know, how one day you like notice little wrinkles and then in your face, and then which is normal for aging, but it's not like one day you had wrinkles and the next day you didn't. Everything's a
Right.
gradual process, and then we kind of just get accustomed to it. But I think it's really about a choice of how you want to live your life as you get older. Do you want to have to hold on to something to sit down onto a toilet, or do you want to be able to independently do that without the help of a person or some kind of prop? Uh,
Right. And that's also getting out of a chair, getting out of,
yes,
you know, getting yourself off the couch,
yes,
or even like using the handrail on the stairs, right? Some people start to like really use it to like literally lift
to lean
themselves
into
up.
it. That's
Yeah,
right.
leaning into it, or they're like winded by the time they get to the top of the stairs, right? So
That's
I
a
think that,
perfect example. Yeah. So when that happens, it doesn't mean it's too late. I think it should be a question in your mind about how do I want to live the next 10 years or and going forward, because whatever you're doing is preparing yourself for the next years to come. Do you want it to continually get harder to do those daily activities? And I also think that things do get harder when we get older. Our bodies are aging, but it doesn't mean that that you have to be resigned to it. This is the one thing in our lives where there's so many other things we can't control. This is something that we have full will and control over.
yes, 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 yes. It's so true. Yeah. There are a lot of things that we cannot control. We can't control menopause. We can't control our hormones. We can't control, you know, all the surroundings and some of the surroundings and that sort of thing. But in terms of trying to maintain our muscles, and you say this a lot too, right? It's better to maintain than to like build up muscles once you're in mid age.
When we get older, I guess especially for women post menopause, the levels of our hormones makes it a lot more difficult to build muscle. And just aging in general is harder to build muscle, and it's just because we're older. So for women, hormonally, we have less of certain hormones, estrogen, progesterone, which ironically do have a role in creating strength. And for men, just in general, muscles are harder because we also synthesize protein less efficiently, which is why usually when they say when people are older, they have to eat more protein because you need to eat more in order to be able to um, metabolize the same amount that you used to easily metabolize when you're 20. I know it's the joys of aging, but it just is. Whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter because it's the reality of our lives. Um, so
But
in terms of
we're not talking about aging like after post 65, right? We're talking about people who are in their
in their
40s and 50s
50s,
and
yep,
yeah,
yeah, absolutely,
and up. I mean, it's not, it's this, I feel like there's this denial, right? That like all of a sudden we turn 65 and now we're old, which of course we know
yeah,
is not the case.
yes. I like to think you want to set yourself up for your elder years in the strongest and best possible way. And that doesn't mean starting strength training when you're 65. It means to have been doing it. So I only started in my early 40s. And honestly, I wish I had known about it or been exposed to it even earlier than that, because that means I would have been doing it longer and it'd be better for my body. But it isn't too late to start in your 40s. Um, you know, I'm an example of it because it's really wherever you start about the consistency of sticking with it. It's even like the idea of I have a friend who is starting med school or just applied to med school and she's 40. So that's a long process, going through medical school. But that's what she wanted. She's starting at 40, but she's doing it. She's
That's
doing it and she's
amazing.
going to be a doctor by 47, after the med school and your residency and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't matter when you start if once you commit to it and then everything just moves upward or progresses from there.
That is so amazing. So, how much strength training should one be getting, let's say on a
It's a
weekly
good
basis?
question. Yep, because I think we want to think how often, what's good for us. So there's two things that you want to think about. One is there's the mental challenge of actually creating this new habit, and then there's the what do I need for this to be good for my body. So for someone who has never done strength training, it would be the same as you know um, me never having. I'm trying to think. Oh, I can think of what I've started recently, like meditation. You're not going to expect me to start meditating every day, like going from zero. So, with strength training, for someone who's never done it before, I always recommend for clients, I want you to start with twice a week. One time is just not enough that it's going to be a habit or that you feel anything changing. I think two times a week for say about 30 minutes is a good way to mentally get yourself started into strength training and enough to make it a habit to enjoy how it feels and make it part of your life. I think ideally, especially if you're in your 40s, you'll want to get to 3 times a week. Is there a magic amount of time that you should be lifting? I think worry more about consistency versus the amount of time. Because if you do strength training for 1 hour a week, um, that is not as great as doing it twice a week for 30 minutes. And it's because it's the idea of same thing with walking. You and during the day, you know how we're always told it's good to have steps. You can think about it. What's going to be good for your body? Sitting for 8 hours, not moving at all, and then going for one long walk. That's good. Or sitting for 2 hours, going for a 15-minute walk, sitting back down for another 2 hours. In terms of your heart and your circulation and muscles, you need to be moving more often than not.
Right, exactly, exactly. So, at what point, so if you're strength training for a couple of weeks, right,
Mhm.
and you're using hand weights or, cans of beans or whatever you might be using, depending on your level, um, what kind of milestones should one be looking for, right? Because I feel like
Mhm.
that tends to be kind of a level of frustration for people, right? They're like, well, why aren't I, I don't see myself getting all cut and I don't see myself getting all really strong. And, you
Yep.
know, and I think then they just stop. So what kind of small milestones should people be looking for? Is it just the fact that, weights get lighter, or, I mean, they have
Hmm.
to be getting stronger, right? If they're doing it consistently.
Yeah. The first one, I think people notice when they start, and then let's just say you're not going to notice anything after a week. It's like nothing in life magically changes in a week. Let's say you stick with it for a month. I think the first thing you're going to notice is how you feel after you exercise or lift weights. You're going to notice that if you're going from zero exercise and then you're starting to lift weights twice a week, at the end of the month, you will see, like, I always feel really good when I'm done. Your energy levels feel better. Your body feels better for moving. So that's the first thing. I think what you'll notice after, we'll say 2 months, because I think a month's not enough. 2 months, 2 to 3 months, you will notice certain things in your everyday life will be easier. Things I've heard from clients are, I found that it's been easier for me to pick up the topsoil in my, the bag of topsoil from my garden, or I had to unload the car or load the car with groceries. That's becoming easier. So the everyday life milestones is where you're going to notice it more, and in how you feel inside your body. In terms of when people look at strength training as to create, I guess, numerical milestones, what you can lift is an indicator that you're getting stronger. So there's two ways you can measure how strong you are with straight numbers. It's, let's say you started with a pair of 5 pound dumbbells. The very first week of workouts, those 5 pounds, just pressing it overhead, might have been hard for 5 reps. After the second month, you'll notice I can easily do 10 reps with those 5 pounds. And then you know that your body's, number one, acclimated to it, and number two, the muscles are getting stronger because it's much easier to do. Another way is after, let's say, you get to 10 reps with those 5 pounds, and you happen to have an 8 pound weight at home, and you try with eight, you find that you can do 5 reps. Already right there, you notice that your body's able to lift 8 pounds overhead. It may not be as many reps, but that doesn't matter because that's what strength training is. It's building your strength so that you gradually increase your capacity of work. Um, and then I think sometimes people wonder, like, well, when does it end? Does strength training you just keep lifting till you can lift 5,000 pounds? It, it doesn't work like that because in life, so many things come up. Sometimes we get sick. Sometimes we go on vacation. So the path of strength training is kind of waves. You go up, and you might have a little dip because you got sick, and then you go back up. Um, and you can challenge yourself, not always necessarily continually just increasing weights. Like I got 10 pounds next, I'll go 15. There, you vary your workouts or challenges by how many reps you do, and then the weight, but there's also types of workouts, how much rest time you get. But that gets into like more of the weeds, which is unnecessary. If you're a beginner, the only thing you need to think about is consistency, and then starting with a weight which feels like, this is kind of hard. And there's nothing wrong with it if with you starting with 2 pounds or 3 pounds, because a lot of strength training is really about your mental confidence in doing it.
Yeah. So how do you know how much weight to hold to begin with, right? How do you decide that I
Yeah,
should do a
that's
two
a good,
pound weight
yep.
versus a 5 pound, 10 pound?
So I think it'll start off with probably what you got at home. But if you were starting off with something, I actually would start off with what you mentally feel would be comfortable. So I might have a client who I know she can handle 10 pounds with a 10-pound dumbbell, but she will look at it and be like, I can't do 10 pounds. And that thought process matters because when you think you can't do something, it does affect whether you can do it because you're just thinking the whole time, oh my God, it's hard. So I would start with a weight that when you pick it up, if you're at a store and you're picking like, okay, I think I can do this overhead, start with that. And then if you're following a program like Get Strong Over 40, it'll give you a general idea of how many reps to do. The reps, the capacity to fulfill those reps will tell you how hard or light the weight is. So let's say you picked 3 pound weight. I was like, do 10 reps of bicep curls. If those 10 reps are just flying up and it's so easy, that's probably a bit light for you. So you want to think the last couple reps of a work of an exercise that's assigned to you, if those feel hard, hardish, then that's a good weight for you to start with.
So you mentioned Get Strong Over 40, which is the program that you developed for modern aging, and it's a
Together we
12 week.
developed, yep.
We're together. Yes, yes, together. I mean, I think this program is so amazing for especially for beginners who just don't really quite know what to do, and
Yeah.
it's structured and you're just so great. So tell me a little bit about what your methodology was behind creating a 12-week program. Why 12 weeks and why for beginners? Why and for women over 40?
I think that a lot of women were not exposed to strength training when they were younger. And I know I wasn't. I only started, as I mentioned earlier, at 42. And it was because I was going to the gym during a divorce when I was not a gym rat. And I just started going to the gym as a place to go that was not my apartment. And I started taking classes, and they were strength classes. And I found that I really enjoyed them. And they made me feel really good in my body. Uh, so because most women are not exposed to strength training, I can think of an example. A friend of mine, her daughter is in high school. Her daughter wanted to take there was a weightlifting class, and she saw that everyone that was signed up were just boys. So she actually decided not to sign up for it. She literally felt intimidated going into a weight room, being the only woman, and especially in high school when people are very self-conscious.
That
So
sucks. That's
yeah,
terrible.
and I think that's
Yeah,
normal
but
because I remember
but it's normal, right?
yeah,
Exactly.
and my high school had a I remember had also a weight room, and I'm sure I didn't sign up for the very same reason. So I wanted to have a beginner program for women who are 40 and older because we have not been exposed to it yet. It is so vital for our health, our physical and mental health. And in being a trainer and having taken certifications, I know the essentials of what we need for strength training. And so I wanted to create a very doable program for someone who's a beginner who has never been exposed to strength training, or even if they have been but haven't done it in a while. Uh, and we actually made it a follow along because it'll make it easier. I think it's always easier to do a follow along for some people to do it while they're at home and hear me cueing as I'm also doing the exercise with you. My feet evenly and parallel to the surface that I'm going to use to support my hand. And I'll start here. So you see how my butt is pushed back, but my back is, I'm not going to be relaxed. I want to push my chest out and my shoulders behind me come together. And then this is where you're just going to bring your arm. You're going to lift your elbow to the ceiling and keep your arm
The
very
community
close
that
to
also
your body.
that gets created out of this, right? Of other women who are doing the same thing and, um, just cheering each other on is really helpful. It's true. It's like it's not just about the physical strength, but it's also about the mental strength as well.
Mhm.
That, when you know that you can now, lift up 10 pounds, 20 pounds over your head that you could not do, 2 months prior, it's pretty
Mhm.
empowering.
Yes.
I mean, you're badass in terms of your pull-ups and all that kind of stuff. I just am in total awe. Um, but there was a time when you could not do one pull-up, and I
That's
just
correct. Yep.
think it's amazing, right? With the
Or can deadlift or
consistency.
use a barbell. We all start from the very beginning. It's just different ages that we start.
So what do you think prevents or gets people scared to try strength training or trying to incorporate it into their life?
I can think about the reasons why I never did it. First, it was intimidating because I'm like, I don't know how to do this. And walking to the gym, there's that one part of the gym. Everyone knows it's usually just all men, and it's where the dumbbells and the barbells are, and it's like all the benches. It's intimidating to go to that area of the gym when you feel like you don't know what you're doing, I'm sure people. I know I thought like, well, if I go there, people are going to notice that I have no idea, or I'm going to do an exercise and do it all wrong, and people are just going to be quietly judging me. So that's one. Not knowing what to do. And then second, culturally, we have not been raised in I think not even just in America, most cultures thinking that women should be strength training. It feels like it's supposed to be a male sport or a male exercise. And then third, I don't know how or who started this on in the media. Women have this concept that if I lift weights, I'm going to get huge. I'm going to bulk up meaning look fatter or just get so muscular that I'll look like a man. And I think it's because there have been images of like female bodybuilders, but I wanted to share a couple facts for everyone to know. So, you need testosterone to build muscle. And that's why, for example, when someone's a bodybuilder, when they do steroids helps uh, is a steroids. It is a synthetic testosterone. So, in other words, it helps you build muscle. Um, and people take that in order to bulk up. So if you think about that, that's why bodybuilders, even though they might in a competition not be allowed to, but that's why also in Olympics, everything, they test for steroids because when you take steroids, you build muscle faster. So women, even at for the women at the most amount of testosterone they can have in their body versus the maximum the male has, we are only 6% of the amount of steroids that men have. That's the woman who has the most amount of natural steroids versus the man, his maximum amount. We're only 6%. So it shows you how little testosterone we have in our bodies that our body manufactures compared to man. So that's how much harder it would be for us to build muscle. So that's one. And in terms of bulking up, the images that we see online, so someone like Arnold, who everyone thinks of as big, I don't know if you all know, but during the time when he was competitively bodybuilding, he did take steroids. And the women that you see looking very masculine, even though it's not going to be told and technically not supposed to be legal, they are taking steroids. And that's how one bulks up in that way. And I don't know if it'll be outwardly spoken, but even someone like The Rock, he's taking steroids. If you talk to any male trainer, because their bodies, they understand how it is to bulk in that way as a man. Every male trainer will tell you. Unfortunately, I love The Rock, but he also takes steroids. Whatever, maybe he has a more natural kind, or whatever it is. So the idea of bulking up, it's not possible for women to bulk up. Where someone might feel like they got bulkier is they're starting to strength train and then they're eating more. So those are reasons why I think most women have not lifted in the past. It's not familiar to you. It's very intimidating, and there's a fear that I'm going to look like The Rock or the female version of The Rock. And I don't know if everyone does. The Rock, besides probably taking steroids, he lifts weights 2 to 3 hours a day. It's his job to look that way, but that's what bodybuilders are doing as well. They're lifting weights at least 2 hours a day, probably about 5 days a week. And to get to look like that is actually very hard.
Right, right. Good point. Good point. My God. Yeah. No one wants to look like The Rock unless well, I
Unless
don't
they're
know.
there.
Most women don't want to look like The Rock.
Correct. And it's
Um,
very hard. And I don't know if you guys follow him on any social media. He also eats a lot. In order to maintain that muscle mass, you have to eat a lot to stay that big.
right, right. Well, that's a good point.
I'm
So
talking
if
10,000 calories.
if women are, finding that they're getting bigger, like they're starting to strength train, but they are feel
Mhm.
like they're getting bigger,
Uh-huh.
that's generally because of food and diet, not because of
So sometimes people might feel like they look at the scale and I've had this happen with clients. They're like, on the scale it says I'm heavier, but when I put on my clothes, it's my pants are looser. So people are always like, oh, muscle is heavier than fat. It's really uh, more visual. So 1 pound of 1 pound of fat. So remember, think about the weight, and then 1 pound of muscle. It's the
right,
same weight on the scale, but the material is different. So one like fat is fluffier, muscle is just more dense and compact. Same weight, just looks different. So sometimes when someone's lifting weight, and you're not, it's not even possible to, like in a month to all of a sudden like be putting on all this muscle mass. Because if that was if that was true, men would be hallelujahing all over the place. It's hard to put on muscle mass. Um, but in, let's say, after 3 months of training, I think of lifting weights regularly, you might notice differences in your body, and physically, like you might notice a little bit more tone in your arms or a little bit more tone in your legs. That's those are some physical signs of your consistent strength training.
That's great. Well, we also want people to get motivated. You know, we're at year end right now,
Hmm.
and it's the holidays where we tend to like, have the pie and the cake and it's
Yeah.
just we're overeating. And I feel like this is kind of a time where we start to think about what do we want to do for 2023. So we
Yes.
want to make it easy for people. So we're going to offer Get Strong Over 40 for over 50% off at $60. We'll run this sale until the end of the year. But this kind of gives you a sense. Tina's there with you doing the exercise. It's like it's very structured in terms of week by week. And then for the
Yeah.
next 12 weeks on your own time, you can go ahead and take a stab at strength training, and hopefully you make it consistent. I think the great thing about the program that you created, though, is that you can actually repeat it, but with heavier weights if you're ready
Absolutely.
for
You
23.
can repeat it with heavier weights. There, I want you to have the independence of as you're doing, like, you know what, these 10 reps are easy. Let me try a heavier weight. Um, and I know not everyone necessarily will have a whole selection of weights. You can also add in a couple reps. What was easy for 10 reps, if you went to 12 reps or 15 reps, does that add a little bit more challenge? So you can alter whether you have the weight or add in some more reps.
Exactly. And I think we can all agree that, we want to be able to get off the toilet by ourselves, right? We
Yes.
want to be able to get off the couch by ourselves, go up the stairs, whatever it is, because life having to have assistance, trust me, I was a caregiver for 20 years. It's not fun. You don't want to rely on other people for your
Yeah.
daily living needs. Um,
It gives
Tina,
you
so
freedom. Hmm.
exactly. So Tina, so how can people follow you? Where should they go? Where are you on the socials?
Yep. So I talk a lot about strength training and aging since I'm 52 this year, and so I know that it's very different for our bodies. So follow me on Instagram at Iron Strong Fit, or my website is ironstrongfitness.net.
Awesome. Tina, thank you so, so much. I'm going to put a discount code in the description section for anybody who wants to take a peek at the course. And it's a nice little Christmas gift for yourself or holiday gift for yourself, or someone you love and care about. But Tina, thank you so, so much. And yeah, we'll see you at the gym.